Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Bowling University studio from the International Bowling Campus here in Arlington, Texas. I'm Bart Berger, and I'll be your host for this edition of the Bowling University Tuesday Morning Profit Break. Thank you for joining us. The Tuesday Morning Profit Break is an opportunity for sharing insights on how to grow revenue, reduce costs, enrich yourself, your team, and your business. Welcome to all of our new viewers, and welcome back to those of you joining us again. We thank all of you for taking a few minutes out of your busy day. We have another great show ready for you to start sharing today. Grab your coffee or your favorite morning beverage, and let's get started improving your profitability. Today we have with us a very special guest, Ms. Stephanie Angelo. Stephanie works with organizations that want to create great company culture to outlive, outlast, and outperform their competition. She helps her clients by establishing customized in-house programs to create traction, not transaction. She's an author. Very excited to learn she's an inventor of 2 board games and has spoken all across the U.S. and in Europe. This morning, Stephanie is going to be discussing how a culture of learning puts you ahead of the competition, something we could all use on this road to recovery. So, Stephanie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the Tuesday Morning Profit Break.
Thank you, Bart. You have a beautiful show opener, and I'm just really proud to be asked to be joining you and talking to all of the members and talking on this profit break.
Yeah, I know, Stephanie, thank you. I'm glad you're here. I know we've been a while. You're going to be with us, and now we finally were able to make it all come together. Excited to have you. So let's start with the elephant in the room, talking about company culture. Many of our viewers and many of our members are small business operators. So the question I'm often asked that I want to defer to the professional is, you know, for small businesses, why does it matter? Aren't company cultures things that really are only reserved for large businesses?
Not at all. In fact, I would suggest that to a small business, it could be even more important, just in the sense that a smaller business may not have as much of a cushion in their revenue. It's typically a tighter margin. So company culture really, really matters a lot. And let's just say, for example, we'll look at some numbers. Now, when I do my presentation in June, there's going to be a little bit about numbers, but more about really learning how to create a company culture and a culture of learning, really the culture of learning aspect of it. But let's talk about numbers first for just a minute, since this is a profit break. If you pay your employees the federal minimum wage, which right now is $7.25 an hour, in Arizona it's $12.15, I believe. If you pay $7.25 an hour, and so they're earning like $15,000 a year, if you have an employee leave, according to the Society for Human Resource Management, it takes 10% of that employee's annual salary to recruit and replace that employee. So now you're spending $1,500 at least to replace that one person. What if you have to replace 2, 3, and so forth? So now you're talking $3,000. The numbers go up. And so when your profit margin is smaller and tighter, that makes a huge difference. And that's just turnover. So you also want to look at how much absenteeism is costing you, accidents. Companies with poor cultures are known to have more accidents. That not only means personal injury, but it could be your equipment. Something goes down in your bowling center, and it puts maybe a particular lane out of order for days. What does that do to you? They have personal accidents, injuries. If you have somebody who quits on you automatically, and maybe that person is the one that hosts your parties. That's their job, is taking care of the parties. And so somebody else has to take over, and they're really bad at it, and they don't want to do it, and they hate it. That's going to show. And so your customers go out and they talk about it, and they say, yeah, we went there for this party and it was terrible and the person was rude and we had a bad time, my kid was crying. Word of mouth gets out, and then people don't come to you for those kinds of things. So if you start to look at all of those things, Bart, it really adds up. And so the smaller businesses have to really look at those, I think, in a sense, every bit as much, and possibly even more than the really big businesses.
Yeah, all great points, Stephanie. And I think that, you know, maybe for us, we don't often tie those things to this terminology of culture, which is a great thing for us. I've heard you talk about this kind of culture of learning. Can you talk a little bit about what do you mean by that? What's a culture of learning?
Well, first of all, let's talk about culture. So the culture is It's like the personality of your organization. A lot of factors go into culture, like how formal you are, what the hierarchy is between management and employees. If it's a small power distance and people feel comfortable talking to you, that really helps the culture. If it's a really large one and people don't feel comfortable talking to you, that's not so good for your organization. People won't tell you what's going wrong. I've been privileged to work with Stacy Anderson of Let It Roll Bowl here in Phoenix, and we had an employee forum. And one of the things that he wasn't present, it was just myself and the employees. And one of the things that they said was they feel very comfortable making decisions. If something has to be fixed or something has to be done, they can make a decision if he's not around, knowing that even if it's the wrong decision, he will always respect them and support the fact that they made the decision because it was for the betterment of the center. And that's a beautiful sign of great culture. And so there are several different things that go into culture. And when we talk about cultural learning, it's a component of that that means that the organization is really focused on, and you might have heard my tagline, creating traction, not transaction. Traction means investing in your employees in their personal development, job development, and career development so that they can really grow within the company. And so they're not there just to do their 8 to 5 or whatever their hours are and get that paycheck at the end of 2 weeks. They're really fully emotionally invested in your center and doing everything they can for it. They want to grow within the organization. They want to learn. They want to do things that are better for the organization. And even if they do grow in their career and go somewhere else someday, still, how great is that for you? What does that say about you? There's a famous quote from Henry Ford. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but he said that the only thing worse than not training your employees is, let me see if I can get this correctly. The only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. And I think that really is important.
Yeah, that's certainly something we live by here at the university, is that, investing in your folks. I love to hear that. Thank you for sharing that example with Stacy. Not surprising. Stacy does a great job, and I know he'll appreciate you sharing that. So you talked about the cost of turnover and kind of some of those negative consequences of a poor culture. How does culture play into retaining people and as well as attracting them?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And we'll have a lot of interaction and discussion about this in June when we're in Louisville together. Employees won't go across the street for 10 cents more an hour. They just won't. I mean, if you're talking just pay, it takes about 22% to encourage somebody to leave and go somewhere else. Employees leave bad bosses and bad workplaces and toxic workplaces. I've got street credibility from living through that myself, but I also have street credibility from wonderful, wonderful cultures where I've stayed because I loved working there. And so it's huge. Employees will stay somewhere where they feel like management cares about them and is invested in them, that their voices are heard, that they're recognized. And they're also going to tell other people. So they'll tell their friends and their family members, hey, you should apply where I work. It's just great. I'm really, really happy there. That kind of word of mouth also gets out when they're in public and just kind of shooting the breeze with people, or they're at networking events or parties or whatever it may be. Culture is huge. And it's like money in the bank. When you develop a really, really great company culture, it's like just cha-ching, pocketing that. So it's huge, and it's something that always has to be worked on. And I know you started the show saying something like elephant in the room, but it can actually be a really, really wonderful thing.
Yeah, great. So we've covered a lot of information, and you shared a lot of things, but for someone that maybe this whole topic of culture is new to them and they're just kind of wrapping their arms around this for the first time, are there a couple of key ingredients that you might share with them to get started to start building that great culture? If there's your top 2 or 3, takeaways.
Well, one of the things that, Stacy and I did together is started with an employee forum. We came up with questions of things that he really wanted to know, that how his employees were feeling about certain things, and he wanted them to feel comfortable talking. And so we created questions, and it was through Zoom, and we had a 1-hour forum, and I let them know right up front, he's not here, he's never going to hear this from you directly. I'm going to type up some notes, but he's not going to know who said what at all. And Stacy took those notes and acted upon them. He looked at the things that they were concerned about and that they were addressing, and he acted on them. And that right there is one of the things that I think that center owners can do to really start addressing culture and letting their employees know, I care about you. I see you, I hear you. You're not just somebody who comes in and has to tend the bar or clean up the tables or be at the front, counter, sizing people for shoes and that kind of thing. I see you, I know you're a person, you have a life, you have a family, you have interests. Let's hear from you. Let's talk together about what we can all do to make this center really, really great. And to do things that are fun, to have employee events, and to make the people feel like they're known and heard. Suggestion boxes are huge in companies, right? But one of the things that employees absolutely hate is when there's a suggestion box, they put things in it, and those things are never even looked at. They don't even necessarily have to be done, but so long as management looks at them and says, this is a great idea, we're going to implement it, or I understand your idea here, but here's why we can't do it. So long as we're looking at those things and hearing our employees, that's a great first step.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. I love the employee forum, and we often say the only thing worse than not asking for a team member's opinion is asking for it and then not responding to it or reacting to it or acknowledging it. So good. So we're going to sneak in one last question here because, we're coming out of this pandemic. We're on the backside of COVID here. But how has COVID impacted this topic of culture?
I hear a lot about it, particularly with organizations that have employees that have to work remotely, and they're feeling lonely and disconnected from the organization. So what I do hear with the centers a little bit that I've been able to talk to are that a lot of them have some concerns about coming to the workplace. Are they putting themselves in jeopardy? What's going on and how can they all be safe at the center? But they're dealing with a lot at home. They may have spouses that have to work at home and are also trying to homeschool. Little kids can be difficult to handle while they're at home. I've got an adult daughter getting her master's degree downstairs on the couch. And so we have a lot that we're dealing with that's a little bit different. Going to the grocery store is different. Everything has become a little bit more of a stressful concern. And so we need to be responsible to recognize that things are happening in the lives of our employees that are difficult right now. Some people want to get vaccinated, some people don't. There's so many different things going on. So we need to be aware of that and talk with people and let them talk and vent. So I think it's making a big difference.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We are so looking forward to having you with us in a few short months. We'll be together in person at Bowl Expo. So thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everybody and have some conversation and fun during the presentation. So thank you, Bart. I really appreciate having this time with you. Thank you.
Awesome. So folks, remember, if you'd like to learn even more about understanding how culture impacts your business, Stephanie will be one of our featured speakers at Bowl Expo in Louisville this June. Stephanie's 90-minute learning lab, Leading the Pack, How a Culture of Learning Puts You Ahead, will be taking place on Tuesday, June 22nd at 2:30 in the afternoon, and you are not going to want to miss it. As we wrap up another edition of the Tuesday Morning Profit Break, remember that when your focuses are growing people, people will grow your business. We look forward to seeing you next week at 10:15 Eastern for another great episode of the Tuesday Morning Profit Break. If you have any questions about today's show or would like any additional information, you can always reach us here anytime at education@bpaa.com. You and your team can watch any of the previous episodes 24/7 by visiting bowlinuniversity.net. Until then, I'm Bart Berger, and remember, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. We'll see you next week.